Bonjour tout le monde, merci beaucoup d'être aujourd'hui parmi nous pour notre deuxième et dernier jour pour l'événement de Humanitarian Design de la France Design Week. Donc on est heureux de pouvoir aussi faire une petite introduction de quelle est notre association et nos membres. Donc je voulais aussi remercier toute l'équipe qui est présente ici parmi nous, qui a rendu cet événement possible, avec des personnes qui viennent d'autres pays. Then I will switch in English because then we're also an international NGO, and that we allow people coming from different places, and also because humanitarian is not only in France, it's all around the world, and people here gonna talk about it. So today we have an interesting day through conferences with a study case from different agencies showing us projects. Then we go through explaining the two words, like the world of humanitarian, the world of design, and how the both can mix. And so this day is focused on that, and to give you an idea of what is possible, what have already been made. And I'm happy to present Thomas Jäger, that he's one of our part of our team and who've been working on humanitarian sector since 7 years in the academic sector and also volunteering. So welcome. So please come and explain us a bit more about your own project.
My name is Thomas Jäger, as all of you heard. I would love to do that presentation in French, but then it's a presentation consisting out of 10 words, and I don't know if I can communicate what I want to with those 10 words. So today I'm talking about one of my projects, which is called Homework. But before I start with Homework, I would just give you a short introduction about my work and who am I. I try to do this very short. I brought you some projects just to give you... this is me, obviously, doing my job. This was actually the slide. If you continue to the next one. So this was, for example, my diploma thesis. I developed a new approach, a new system on how to incorporate civilians into the emergency response in moments of catastrophe or conflicts, designed a physical kit for that, but also an entire system that is in line with the international procedures. I design do-it-yourself cacao tools for communities in Equatorial Guinea, like that they can't hurt themselves anymore, opening the fruits. Like you see this person cut off an entire finger, opening a cacao fruit in a place where there's actually no medical support or at least not available to these people, but also creating an economic benefit for those people because you can't hurt the trees anymore, which would lead them to die, which leaves a huge economic hole in their cooperatives. I do also teach at HFG Offenbach in Germany under the umbrella of the Humanitarian Design Lab, just because I recognized, and this was our topic yesterday, mainly education, that there are awesome people running awesome projects and they just need the last the soft skills to actually engage with humanitarian actors and other stakeholders in this under the umbrella of humanitarian innovation. Yes. I design very low cost digital solutions as well. This is like an app that is open source, provides out of a drone picture a three-dimensional visualization of a refugee camp. This is Katsikas refugee camp in Greece, trying to visualize it in a way that you can see the surrounding. It's contextually clear, and we are not talking about numbers, we are talking about people. So these are different characters that are there. The app is available to download. And people can surveil and monitor the ratio between the amount of people being there and the space they have, actually. Like now in COVID, this was kind of an urgency in Greek refugee camps, as I thought. And I'm also working with humanitarian designers. I was part of that project. I was mainly engaged in asking stupid questions in meetings, but also designing the installation with also not just me, obviously. Gwen was part of that, and Charlotte was organizing the conference. Thanks for that. Maybe, Charlotte, you can give us a short introduction into what Humanitarian Designers is and what we've done here, or what are we doing here?
Sure. So the founder, that is Cedric Fetus, is right now in Tunisia. And we, as we said, we're international community coming from different places and organizing things from distance. We aim to make the link, the bridge between the humanitarian sector and the design world, because we believe that they can collaborate better, and there's really some value to add into these sectors, and the designer wants more to be engaged in this kind of subjects, and because it's really human-centered, the both approach are human-centered, and they can always learn from each other. The main point is also to make the education be part of it, and also teach the student about what is the humanitarian sector and how you can involve and use your skills. Then to teach the humanitarian sector why designer would help, and also to bridge, because this they have also their own language, and we need to find a way to make this happen. So that's why we're here also today, to introduce us and to welcome all the members that want to join. Then we have a Slack that is open to anybody interested on it, and we always share a project that happens, and maybe in the future we're gonna create some project. So that's it. Then I have a question for you, is also to make us an introduction about the installation, because as you see on the seat there are some flyers. Then that was also designed.
Yeah. Like this was designed by our lovely graphic designer Loic, who is in the back filming us right now. When you open these flyers, firstly you get an overview over the program that happened yesterday, some contact details, and a short explanation of how the installation works. We're going to go to that later all together and work on this collectively. But just to give you a short overview, like we are trying to find like different or discuss different contents in the topics of like humanitarianism. Sorry, I always have difficulties saying this. Then we have a module that deals with mainly design education and trying to find out like what the gaps are there and how we could solve them. And we have a module that actually highlights already existing projects and issues they were facing on site they weren't aware before.
So when I talk about bridge, the idea is to see it in the visual way into the installation by making the link with some threads, finding challenges, linking to projects. And as today we're gonna see a lot of projects, the idea is to write on the papers the project and to put there on the installation. So thank you.
No, I thank you.
Thank you. And
if everyone's applauding, I can sit down already. I will put that to the side and actually present you what I'm here for today. If you go to the next slide. I'm talking about homework today. That's one of my long-term projects. It started in 2018, mainly in Greece. I'm going to talk about that further. I call homework the use of the own creative power, or rather the empowerment of people in the context of displacement to use their own skills and capacities to actually try to solve daily life's problems. If you go to the next slide. If we look at context of displacement, like people mainly have two options. They can flee to the nearest surrounding of the point of the area of catastrophe or conflict, or even in like other countries, as we know. And I just called it here campsites. This is here embodied by a picture of the Samos refugee camp in Greece, where I implemented the project in 2019. Looking at this context, there were a lot of people suddenly arriving, trying or still continuously arriving, who firstly had little own resources left after that long journey and no personal belongings. So now these people need an infrastructure and services. They provide to them mobility, education, household items, like everything that's included in like this multi-sectoral approach of clusters. Yeah. But on that island, this infrastructure doesn't exist. So what was back then the case, this infrastructure needed to be set up. It needed to be built. It didn't happen until now, but this is a different story. If we then look at the second place, the second option people have, coming back to their actual homes, the area of catastrophe or the area of conflict as soon as possible, which would be lovely, because it's a quite efficient way, and it would give people back their own cultural heritage and dignity in their own places. Then we see that picture of the area of Karantina, or the neighborhood of Karantina in Beirut, where I implemented the project after the blast in 2020. Here we find a similar picture. That blast destroyed all the livable spaces, actually, and not just the livable spaces, also the infrastructure surrounding those. So actually, it was quite a devastating situation people were facing there. Now, we should keep in mind, in both situations, it's not just about like the systems people are surrounded and the services that are provided to people. There's also a component of really like manifested three-dimensional items they need to live a life in dignity. As simple things as shelter, which then needs electricity, and so on and so on. If you go to the next slide, Charlotte, we see that this isn't that simple. Like, I obviously can't capture the entire complexity of humanitarian response in that organization, in that presentation. But just to give you a short overview, I included that graphic of the Red Cross here, where we can already see that we're talking about different phases of crisis. We talk about different needs in those phases of crisis, and which itself already creates different approaches to those phases. And there are added layers in terms of like political complexity or cultural. All in all, it's not that easy to like provide adequate shelter if we just look at the shelter cluster. If you go to the next slide, I just collected some challenges that are arising out of these contexts. I'm also focusing in this case just on the shelter cluster, just to make it more simple. These are the difficulties we were able to research in advance to pre-fill the installation. If we look at the first point, camps becoming temporary cities, this includes both parameters I was talking about. It includes the timely component, but it also includes like already a shift of needs of people. A temporary emergency shelter is conceptualized as like something temporary, but those shelters are normally like transitioning to like longer term accommodations. Then there are several other issues, like ensuring sustained maintenance can be an issue, collecting data regarding damage to residential properties, like this is touching the point I was mentioning with coming back to the actual homes. And then it's also like you can see already how many cultural or individual aspects are needed to focus on to provide actual adequate shelter. We look at like different cultures, different sex, different age, different religions. And who deals with all of that now? As all of us know, these are mainly humanitarians. Like obviously the humanitarian sector and the network included, especially under the umbrella of humanitarian innovation, gets wider and wider and tries to incorporate more private sector actors. But if we try to focus on the main parties that I pictured here, and we look at humanitarians, they find themselves often overwhelmed due to the complexity, but also due to the natural thing that many people arrive at the same time or are in the need of their service at the same time and has to be quickly, and those have to react quickly to this. This then led to a top-down approach that was implemented by humanitarian projects from the beginning till now, actually often still the case, where people from outside of the context trying to imagine solutions and implementing them. This then ended up in not a needs-based approach and not contextual adequate solutions. What this also does is it incapacitates the affected population. But if we look at the affected population, it's nothing new for people who are dealing with this context. Like they have skills, they have capacities, and all of them could be used. Yeah. Also talking about the capacity, these are like vast numbers of people which are like forced to be passively while they could actually be cooperated in decision-making processes and in the processes of finding solutions. Furthermore, they know about the local needs and the local culture and infrastructure. These are things, for example, me as a designer, while I'm sitting in Germany, I can't even like really grasp, even if I do this quite thorough research. But still they remain often not integrated. You can drink your water. So this creates then several issues. Like I just tried to give an overview here of some pictures I digged out at my laptop. It ends up like in inadequate community spaces, which people are trying to solve themselves already by just placing mattresses in communal spaces. It creates like inadequate solutions in terms of like in terms of like sanitation installations, which people already trying to solve by themselves. It creates issues in terms of like adequate shelter and storage spaces in people's private spaces, which people are also trying to solve themselves. And it also like ends up in like issues facilitating adequate cooking facilities, which people are also trying to solve themselves already. And this I try to empower more. And this I try to bring to the next stage of like really providing the surrounding where people can then like in a more efficient way really use their skills. And this firstly gets manifested within the homework project through an on-demand workspace. Like just quickly talking about the design, it's like adaptable to local context through like open design. What do I mean by that? I mean mainly that it's a physical object that is standardized, produced. It is parametrical. I'm talking about this in a minute. But then gets implemented in a process of redesigning it for the local context. It is actually a small box that can be in maximum 3 minutes by just one person transformed into a mobile workspace. The application of wheels on the back of it, like make it then fully mobile. It's also easy to carry even with the tools inside. It doesn't make any compromises in terms of stability. Like a workspace that's not stable and you can't work on doesn't have like much impact. So we find like a beam construction, a beam geometry, and this in addition with like some stabilizers and the tightening of straps, like really stiffs the workspace in a position where it is supposed to be and people can work safely on it. If we look at the back, this is like the main thing where it gets clear what I mean with it's adaptable to the local context. We find a pattern in which we can place different round sticks. These different round sticks can be at every time configured in the moment of implementation, but also further in the progress of using the boxes. By configuring these round sticks, you can already like secure different tools needed. If the tools are too small for this pattern, like there are, which are not shown here, there are like soon tool bags that are put in the pattern. This then gets intensified through parametrical design, as I said. Like the entire box is parametrically designed. Before we start producing them, we readjust them with the users, which makes which gets enhanced and simplified by a parametric design, as I said. So by doing this, we can also like widen the gaps between the sticks or making them more narrow, which then increases the amount of tools or the variety of tools you can put in there. This case, we can place there tools which are needed for maintenance, repairing, or like creation of different items. That makes this one thing already like multifunctional. You can address different needs with it, but I'm also coming to this later. And furthermore, it's also modular. You can arrange them in a group, you can strap them together, and this enhances also like the context of usage. Talking about ecological sustainability, all of these workspaces I produce on site, which like eliminates logistical efforts. And not natural materials, but semi-natural materials in combination with a design that is repairable, lowers the carbon dioxide footprint. Yeah. And like with these workspaces, then people can create different things. Like, for example, this is Obada, who is actually, I called him in between my homework assistant. He's one of my best friends. Like we are about to reunite in Germany. He just created a little stool for himself to sit there and watch his pigeons. You can click through the next one a little bit faster. But it also creates moments where, like, as you've seen, like people just join in naturally. Like all of you could probably know it. Sometimes you pass by a construction site, you see someone creating something and you just get curious. What are they doing there? You start thinking about this, you might get engaged in the process. But people can also not just create like these small artifacts, also like proper structures. To make this possible, and now we need a little bit more time on that slide. No, the next one. To make that possible, it's obviously not enough to just go there and drop these workspaces inside the camp. Like, due to the complexity, this would create conflict between the user groups. The last thing that we want in humanitarian response. So homework understands itself rather as like a partner in the progress of implementing these, and also in the further steps of evaluating the usage. If we talk about the process, it's like a two-sided process. On one side, homework is empowering organizations to incorporate crafts, workshop, or similar things into their programs to enrich their programs. But on the other side, also like implementing these workspaces directly in communities where they then can completely independently organize them, manage them, and create what they really need. This progress is obviously quite simplified here, but I'm trying to explain it with 6 steps. After initial contact, I visit people, I research last contextual parameters that are obvious in the beginning, and engage people into the trainings that are following on that. In those trainings, we educate people on like humanitarian know-how, we educate people on like crafts know-how if it's not existing, and on organizational know-how. Based on that, we then also in those trainings trying to define the system that works for them, which means we discuss parameters that are important for homework as a project, like not making differences concerning genders and so on. But also like we incorporate in these agreements, as I called them here, parameters that are important for them. Like we define a distribution system that really works out for the people, which means that I'm not imposing on them any opening hours or how they exactly have to help people. I'm discussing this with them. Afterwards, there's a little redesign following, which I'm going to introduce also in a bit. And then a little celebration, a handover to the users of the workspaces, who are then actually empowered with all the theoretical tools they need and the practical tools they need to go inside their communities and try to help them to create DIY solutions for their issues of daily life with practical help, with sharing knowledge, and with sharing their skills. But we are not just reaching those 5 people. So if we, I forgot to mention this, in these trainings, we elect as a group with all the other participants, like 5 people who we could imagine are running the project the most effective. We select these people also under the under a parameter of like diversity and variety. Like this then leads us to them sharing the box in intervals they are choosing and being able to reach their own community. Like if we're talking about nationality, I often made the experience that Afghan people, for example, have the best connection to other Afghan peoples. So if we have a quite international and gender diverse group here, they can then help out their wider communities inside the camps. But it's not just a space where like people then can create like these simple solutions. It's also a space of community, as I tried to mention this before. Like it's really a space where people come together, try to find solutions together, share their skills together, which then in practice also creates or enhances community. But I call it often a multidimensional impact because you can create firstly different things, but also on a not theoretical, but like a
idea.
Yeah, on an ideological level, maybe this is a word that I could use now, sorry for that. It provides psychosocial support through just getting active, creating solutions, having like impact on your own daily life, getting some dignity back that you are actually able to do something. It encourages creativity, people learn skills, they can save costs, for example, by creating a garden and providing food for their own families out of that garden. It can create structures where people are able to generate an income for themselves. And like I'm skipping some of them, but the most important point for me is that we empower people to make a surrounding that is actually inhabitable to a new home, even if it's just a temporary one. This is also where the name is coming from, homework. We work on a home. It's not like I'm giving people homework and I'm checking on that next week. If you go to the next slide. Yeah. So with these workspaces, people can also create then these practical solutions. And I just brought you some examples that have been built with those workspaces. So people build furniture, they build entire structures and can do the electro installations with it. They can create gardens, which is not just there to provide food, but also to make like a really gray space, maybe more welcoming to them. They can build little houses, like this is a house for a cat we built together, like so they can, have pets at home, which also provides then another time psychosocial support. They can create little businesses like this kiosk, and they can create like telecommunication infrastructure in really simple ways if it's not provided by humanitarian organizations. Like this person here is just screwing a Wi-Fi antenna to his container because he thought that he should share the Wi-Fi access to the other people surrounding him in the camp. They can create, they can fix their bicycles, they can repair them so they stay mobile. And also an interesting aspect of the project is that we are not just like condemning humanitarians like some people are doing in the discourse of humanitarian innovation. I believe not in a top-down versus bottom-up approach. I do believe in working on equal footing, same as like the people are working with the workspaces on equal footing. So I'm trying to build a bridge between organizations and the actual people. This then ended up, for example, in this project where, I'm calling them out, ASB was approaching those ambassadors, those community volunteers, that people were complaining about a lot of mosquitoes inside their shelters. So they then came up in a participatory design process with a simple mosquito net solution. And the people, like the ambassadors, were walking from container to container, offering, if someone wants it, they could provide like mosquito nets to them and install them with the people together. Same as people work together with the organizations on equal footing and underneath each other, Homework itself understands, the project's aim also to be working on equal footing. So in every implementation, as I said, there was a redesign phase. In that redesign phase, they optimize the system and the product I'm suggesting to them so it's fitting their local needs. That means that they are improving them like consistently. With every implementation, the project itself gets better. Those designs, I'm just partially as the designer influencing. So when the product gets with every context more optimized, like I make the experience then that it's then in the next implementation much easier to implement it and like more secure that we help people or support people actually using their own skills in a more effective manner. These were partners I was cooperating with, like some in terms of implementation, some in terms of funding, and that was mainly homework. If you guys have questions. Or
how did you get this project? How did you organize the collaboration with these different partners?
I'm not shy. I just call them till someone says like, dude, like for example, when I was cooperating with Concern in Beirut, it was like me reaching out to my network in Greece if someone doesn't know someone being active in Beirut. And then this contact happened. I started to get in touch with them. We defined like, actually it was a really cool project because they were working on an anti-racism campaign and we just deployed interns with them. There was another workspace there, but in terms with them, we just tried to support the people. They want to engage into like the reconstructions with the tools they need. So they could show up there and be not just like, and could I maybe have to shovel? No, they bring their own tools and get more respect from the organizations or like private sector actors reconstructing it. It was a quite long answer.
No, it was good. Good.
Some other question.
With refugees?
No, I haven't been in touch with the low-tech lab, but when I saw them, like, I really liked the idea, obviously.
Because they made the same like a maker space, but then it's not, you can't move it, but they also allow people to like, also to empower them by doing by themselves and build things that they need.
You mean the makerspace we saw at Bologna?
No, in Lesbos.
Okay. Yeah, this was actually also how I started. Maybe that's an interesting insight I haven't integrated in the presentation to shorten it. When I started all of that, the idea came up, me volunteering in an intercultural makerspace in Greece. And I loved the impact. I loved how the approach of people, like they are the experts, they come here. And after working there for 1 year, I thought like, dude, actually, they don't need us at all. They have skills. If they would have tools, they could just go for it. And also, they are also kind of still dependent on us, even if we have that approach and really don't make differences between us and them, as it's still often the case. They have to wait until we open, and when we close, they have to go again. So I just try to intensify this approach by really providing it to the people in a mobile way, so they can really self-determine and like, how could you call it, independently work on that.
Thank you.
Very, very,